26th edition of studentloanjustice.org. My name is Alan Collins. We are the oldest and largest true grassroots group only and absolutely fighting for student loan justice. We've been around since 2006. We've been featured on many things, and we've uncovered many very important points of research over the years. So I'm not going to bore you with all the details, but suffice it to say, we know quite a bit about the student loan problem at this point, and we have seen all the tricks that I think all the tricks that can possibly be played on us, the people that can be played. And this is good because there's a couple of tricks that are being played on us right now as we speak. First of all, let me just say, oh, by the way, if you have any questions or comments, throw them out. If I can see them on Twitter or Facebook, I will gladly respond to them. If you're watching us on YouTube or Instagram or one of our other platforms, sorry about that. I can only keep track of so many comment threads at one time. So you probably want to switch over and follow us on Twitter, which is Student Loan Just #1, or check us out on our Facebook group, which is facebook.com/groups/SLJ group. And if I can see your comments, as I said, I will very gladly respond to them. So there's a lot going on right now, folks. But first, here's the big numbers, the big picture. The big picture is that this lending system, certainly this federal student loan system, is failed with a capital F. It's essentially a dead man walking. And this pandemic is the nail in its coffin. So here's what you need to know. Even before the pandemic, fewer than half of all the borrowers, in fact, in other words, most student loan borrowers were not paying on their student loans. Like 50.5% were not making payments on their student loans before the pandemic. So that is now down to nearly zero now. But if and when they ever try to turn on this lending system again, supposedly on May 1st, it's not going to happen. Probably not even a quarter of the people will resume paying. Ladies and gentlemen, this lending system was essentially a dead man walking even before the pandemic. Let me just throw a few facts at you to back that claim up. The first thing I said, half of everybody wasn't even paying before the pandemic. The default rate for 2004 students who were only borrowing less than a third of what's being borrowed today, the default rate for 2004 students is 40%. And it's actually higher than that now that the pandemic happened. But it was forecast to be 40%. Even before the pandemic. So the subprime home mortgage default rate was 20%. It was half that. So, my best estimate is that before the pandemic of everybody walking around with student loans, the default rate was going to be something like 65, 70, 75%. So that's only gone up and up tremendously. This pandemic has given people a couple of years to reflect and remember what it's like to live without having to make these massive student loan payments, most of whom for which their loan balances weren't even going down. I don't think the grammar of that last sentence was well constructed, but most people were underwater on their student loans even before the pandemic is what I'm trying to say. And again, as I said, if you have any questions and comments, throw them out. So yeah, guys, this lending system's failed, and it's not our fault. It's not the borrower's fault. This is a bad lending system by design. This is not a bad borrower problem. I see people frustrated and hurt and angry because they get hit by people on the internet all day long who are wagging their fingers and saying, you should have made better decisions. You should have known what you were getting into, and you signed on the dotted line, you pay your loans. Those people don't, those people have no clue. The people, us, have not, the citizens, we haven't changed that much since, let's say, the 1970s. On balance, I'd say we probably tend to be a bit more responsible than less responsible, but okay, let's just say that we're roughly the same. We haven't changed. What has changed is this lending system. Guys, the numbers are cartoonish at this point, even compared to other failed lending systems like the subprime home mortgage crisis. No matter how you slice and dice the data, this lending system is done. It's finished. It's toast. And no amount of finger wagging is going to make that not true. It's just not going to happen. And quite frankly, it shouldn't happen. This lending system should not be saved. It is a national threat. You know, lending systems fail from time to time. That's just the sad reality of Western economics, or really even going back to the times of ancient Greece. Lending systems failed. They just did. Look at the recent examples. Subprime home mortgages failed. Look at maybe also in the recent past, look at the S&L crisis, the savings and loan scandal of the mid-'80s, I think, early '80s. Failed lending system. Look at pretty much all of Europe in World War II, and I think much of Europe in the wake of World War I. Yeah, not only were lending systems failing left and right back then, entire economies were failing back in, entire monetary systems were failing back in those days. And, you know, that may seem like a long time ago, but it wasn't that long. And I could point to any number of other examples worldwide, probably within just the past 30 or 40 years. We see lending systems fail all the time. It's kind of what happens. Human nature is such that the banks get greedy and they start abusing the borrowers, and then the borrowers don't pay and the lending system explodes, and eventually everything has to be wiped out and reset and restarted. And that's what is happening, maybe in slow motion, far slower than I would prefer. But that's what's happening to the federal student loan system, guys. And you shouldn't trip on it. It's not that big of a deal. Seems like a big deal. It's not that big of a deal. That $1.8 trillion seems like a lot of money. It's not even real, period. Like the vast majority of that debt is nonsense. It's interest, it's penalties, it's fees, it's interest compounded on interest. It's fiat. It's not even a real thing. So, you know, people out there I know are really distressed and they're like, oh, I'm getting all these strongly worded text messages and phone calls and emails from the loan servicers telling me to get ready to pay. Well, obviously that's what they're going to do. That's what they get paid to do. But that doesn't make this lending system any less failed. So don't trip. We got this. The one thing that I will tell you is that, you know, we're in new territory here. The technology of the day has given the financial system a lot more power than they used to have in years and decades past. But again, that doesn't mean the lending system can ever be saved. It cannot, and it should not. So we got this, guys. You shouldn't be that worried. You know, a lot of people are like, oh no, I have to start paying again. No, you don't. And most people will not. And quite frankly, in my humble opinion, if anybody ever makes another payment on their federal student loans, it is not only, I think, unwise because the loans will be canceled. It's, at this point, unpatriotic. You do not want to feed this beast. That doesn't help you. It doesn't help your family. It doesn't help the 45 million other federal student loan borrowers in the country. It doesn't help the hundreds of millions of people who are going to follow in our footsteps and don't deserve to be conquered and enslaved. You know, this thing could and should have a very good ending. It should have we should be able to give this lending system a clean death. And honestly, guys, student loans, come on, are they not one big national joke at this point? Nobody's been paying on them for the past 2 years. I heard that Jen Psaki today in a press conference was like, yeah, these student loan borrowers, they haven't paid a dime in the past 2 years. Yeah, they need to get ready to pay more even when the lending system is turned back on. She didn't say that exactly, but she was basically denigrating the student loan borrowers. And I'm sorry, but that is just the height of stupidity. They should not be wagging their finger at us, the borrowers. The lending system is bad. It's a national threat. And quite frankly, I know I'm picking on Joe Biden, Jen Psaki, primarily because of the way Joe Biden betrayed us, how we put him into office in critical states like Georgia, and he betrayed us. He lied to us. But, it's not like the Republicans are great, guys. Neither party is good. Maybe that's probably the most important thing I'm going to say tonight. We're not in love with either political party. It's kind of a good cop, bad cop thing. We have some Democrats calling for loan cancellation. Elizabeth Warren, Chuck Schumer, for example, to their great credit, are calling for loan cancellation by executive order, which is the most important thing about that whole thing. And just so you know, the entire conversation about canceling student loans by executive order started with this group. We started the petition in March 2020 calling for student loan cancellation by executive order. It was a novel concept at the time. And it was only when our petition started really rocking and rolling, like hundreds of thousands of signatures, that Elizabeth Warren and Chuck Schumer finally embraced the concept. And we're glad that they did. But folks, this up to $50,000 nonsense, these up to $50,000 guardrail that Elizabeth Warren put on her proposal, that was, and it is, a trick. Up to $50,000 can mean anything. And if the Biden administration has its way, it will mean nothing for almost everyone. We've seen this movie before. It's a bad movie. We've had this trick played on us before. It's a bad trick. Public service loan forgiveness was a huge trick. Income-based repayment, massive trick. 99% of everyone trying for those loan cancellation programs were disqualified on purpose by a Department of Education that has had and has no desire, no intentions of actually canceling any loans. So, yeah, guys, glad the Democrats actually put the concept of canceling student loans by executive order on the table. That's good. But this up to $50,000 nonsense is just not to be trusted, ladies and gentlemen. So, having said that, there's even less good things to say about the Republicans. Historically, they have opposed us at every step in the way. We fought very moderately for only the return of bankruptcy protections for the first 15 years of our existence. And the Republicans fought us tooth and nail every step of the way. Actually absolutely most important thing that I'm going to tell you tonight, ladies and gentlemen, is that if you want loan cancellation, or maybe you just want a break on the interest or some other common sense workout, if you want either of those things, you need to help us fight to get bankruptcy protections restored to student loans. There's two bills right now. I'm not even going to talk about the private loan bill. It doesn't have much going for it, unfortunately. And if you have private loans, you should definitely be fighting for HR 4907, because that is your last and best hope. But if you have federal student loans, there's a bill in Congress right now, S2598. This bill will return bankruptcy protections to federal student loans. We will not see meaningful student loan cancellation or even any sort of fair workouts unless and until we get the threat of bankruptcy back on our side. It's just not going to happen. In the absence of bankruptcy, we will continue to see these fake, tricky, essentially feckless loan cancellation promises, like all the stuff that I just mentioned, where 99% of the people don't get it. Without the threat of bankruptcy, that's what we can expect. We've got to have the threat of bankruptcy back on our side in order for Joe Biden to be compelled to meaningfully, widely, broadly, maybe even totally cancel student loans. Bankruptcy is very important, whether you would ever or never file. Bankruptcy is the kryptonite of the student loan industry. Bankruptcy is what the student loan industry fights tooth and nail, and this includes the Department of Education. They fight tooth and nail behind the scenes to keep bankruptcy gone from the loans. So bankruptcy isn't sexy. Nobody wants to file. It's a terrible thing to have to do. But the founding fathers knew that having the threat of bankruptcy back on the borrower's side was so important, they called for uniform bankruptcy laws in the Constitution, not the Bill of Rights, the Constitution itself. And they called for it ahead of the power to declare war, ahead of the power to raise an army, ahead of the power to build a navy and declare war. That's how important the founding fathers knew that bankruptcy was. Well, that's been taken away uniquely from student loans, both federal and private. It's the greatest injustice in modern American history. Certainly the greatest economic injustice in my lifetime. And now we're seeing the results. You know, you just can't take bankruptcy away from a lending instrument, because this is precisely what happens. Even when the federal government is running the thing, evidently, it is an extremely unwise to remove bankruptcy from a lending system. It forces it compels, enables the worst of bad faith. So this bill, S-2598, is what we spend most of our time fighting for these days, folks. And you know, we're a completely nonpartisan group. We can't stand the Republicans or the Democrats, really. It's kind of a good cop, bad cop thing. But the fact of the matter is, we need to get more Republicans to be pushing this bill. We've already got 2, and that's really good. We make a very conservative argument, by the way. Donald Trump filed for bankruptcy many times, or at least his companies did. Bankruptcy is a pretty conservative thing, and people from, you name the conservative bastion, people from the Cato Institute, people from George Mason University, people from the National Review, all kinds of conservatives agree with me that bankruptcy is very, very, very important. And so now, lo and behold, we have a very well-positioned bill in the Senate. I'm going to say it one more time, S-2598. You need to help us fight for this bill, ladies and gentlemen. Whether you would ever or never file for bankruptcy, that doesn't matter. In fact, very few people will even have to file when we get the right returned. Just the act of returning the threat of bankruptcy back to us will absolutely, I guarantee it, compel the president to broadly, widely, deeply, perhaps totally, we'll see, cancel federal student loans by executive order. And by the way, the president can cancel loans by executive order without needing one dime from the Treasury or adding one penny, not even a nickel, to the national debt. You cannot say that about PPP loans or the $1.6 million each stimulus that 43,000 millionaires and billionaires got during this pandemic. You can't say it about any of the other stimulus programs that we've seen come and go over the past couple of years, or I would say the past couple decades. So yeah, guys, the time to fight is right now. Our bill, S-2598, is very well positioned. Dick Durbin is the sponsor. John Cornyn and Josh Hawley, 2 Republicans, are the co-sponsors. Senator Durbin is the chairman of the Judiciary Committee. So at least on paper, he's got the votes to get this thing through the Senate right now. And I am told that he has every intention of doing that. And so this bodes extremely well for us, guys. But still, there's a lot of work that needs to happen on our part, me and you, in order for this bill to pass. Quite frankly, the other student loan advocate groups out there, I have no idea why they seem to be, I'll put it very kindly, they seem quite reluctant to fight for bankruptcy. One of the groups I know is literally corrupted. We found very close ties behind this group, between this group and a very deep, dark lobbying firm in Washington, D.C. that's well known for creating fake grassroots front groups on behalf of energy companies and banks and oil companies, tobacco companies, etc. But whatever, I don't really care what their deal is. All I know is that they are absolutely wrong to be not fighting for bankruptcy, because, and look, just look at the situation from your own eyes. What do you think the most Biden is going to do in the current climate? The most he's going to do, and this is actually even a stretch in the current politics, the most we can expect Biden to do is cancel up to $50,000 in student loan debt. So first of all, the people who are being hurt worse, $50,000 is kind of a joke. It's like not even a fraction of the interest that's been thrown onto their loans over the years and decades. But guys, it's not even going to be $50,000. There's going to be means testing, and there's going to be all kinds of conditions and bureaucratic hurdles, and who knows, all kinds of nonsense thrown onto whatever loan cancellation Biden might trot out. And it will come to almost nothing for almost everybody, just like every other loan cancellation gimmick that we've seen over the past 20 plus years. That's the best we can expect from Joe Biden in the current political climate. That's not good enough. Only with the threat of bankruptcy returned to these loans will Joe Biden be compelled to significantly and meaningfully cancel loans. Because, ladies and gentlemen, there's around 40 million people in the country who are underwater on their student loans. They're freaking out. They're losing sleep. And if Joe Biden didn't cancel loans, they'll be very strongly compelled to file. Now, in a typical year, fewer than 1 million people file for bankruptcy for any reason on their student loans. I don't think Joe Biden wants to be the president that oversaw the greatest wave of bankruptcy filings in U.S. history, bar none, like including the Great Depression. So yeah, guys, if you want loan cancellation, or even if you just want a fair workout, it's not going to happen unless and until we get, first of all, this bill, S-2598, passed. But really, we need to fight to get bankruptcy returned to all student loans, public and private. So S-2598 is the bill that, if you care about this issue at all, you will spend a huge amount of time going forward fighting for. If you go to our website, and this is the one action item I have for you all tonight, if you go to our website, studentloanjustice.org, you will see the daily action. You need to go to that daily action link, and I would humbly ask you to do the past 2 weeks worth of our daily actions. They're very quick. It's like Twitter stuff. You can probably do a month worth of our daily actions in not more than about 10 or 15 minutes. It takes almost no time. Like I said, most of it's Twitter stuff, which is super simple. So please do that. You know, we are the pioneers on this. We are the only group in the country fighting for this bill, the only citizens group anyhow. So I can't speak for the other groups. Quite frankly, they ought to be ashamed of themselves. And you should really ask them the very tough questions. Why are you not fighting for bankruptcy? It is a necessary precondition for actual student loan cancellation. You should ask them that and see what they say. I think they'll hem and haw, and they'll say things like, oh, bankruptcy is a terrible thing to have to do. It ruins your credit, da-da-da-da-da. No. If they're that stupid, they shouldn't be fighting. They shouldn't be claiming to be fighting for students. Very few people will have to file when this right is returned. It's just having the threat of bankruptcy back on our side that is needed, is essential for compelling, meaningful student loan cancellation or any of the other workouts that you may wish to see. But whatever, let them defend themselves. What I know is what I just told you. We've got to fight, ladies and gentlemen. And we here on this group, studentloanjustice.org, we are the pioneers in this fight. I don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican or a Libertarian or an Antifa or a communist. I don't care. You are very welcomed in this group, no matter what your political stripes. Although we kind of prefer libertarians. I hate the government at this point. We don't like people who are dyed-in-the-wool Democrats or reared and raised Republicans. You know, that's, like I said, whatever your stripes are, it's great. We are here united on a common cause. And if you look down on, if you're watching this on Twitter, you will see a very cool graphic that I posted the other day, calling for the unification of deplorables and snowflakes. That is very true. And one other quick thing that you need to be aware of, we publish articles, and we have been publishing a lot of articles lately, most notably on our Medium site. And these Medium articles answer all of our critics. They answer all the tough questions. They address pretty much all of the student loan debate that's going on right now. It is very important that we get these articles out. Okay, yeah, there they are right there. So please do our daily actions. Of that, there is no doubt. Right now, we've got like 5 or 6 articles that really haven't gotten enough exposure. We wrote them over the past like 2 or 3 weeks. Please go and give many claps to our most recent articles. I think you can clap up to 50 times or so. Really important that you do that. And maybe even more important, read them, understand them, and share them with people who need to see them. Like, we wrote 1 or 2 of them specifically for conservatives. Get them to a conservative. This stuff does not happen in a vacuum, ladies and gentlemen. These are your loans. This is your problem. We don't have a marketing department. We don't have any kind of a budget per se. We are a true grassroots group. You know, if we were a band, we'd be the Grateful Dead, where we don't charge admission. No, nothing like that. We are just a group of normal people, and it's really the strongest and maybe only muscle that we have. But that is meaningless unless you step up. Don't wait and watch and worry and eat popcorn and treat this like entertainment. It's not. These are your loans. This is your life. This is your livelihood that is on the line. We need you up off your couch, or at least on the internet, fighting with us, because we will get nowhere until that happens. We will get everywhere when everybody starts doing their part and stepping up and just doing a little bit. So I'm very optimistic, ladies and gentlemen. If even half the people on our group, and we've got well over 1 million people at this point between all of our platforms, if even half of those people did something like our daily actions or that Medium thing that I just said, or any number of other actions that we call for every day for the next 2 months, these loans would be gone by spring. I kid you not. We have a massive, huge muscle to flex. We are the tip of the spear. And in many ways, we are the entire spear. We are the eye of the hurricane. We are the whole fucking hurricane. Pardon my French. That didn't come out right. We are the actual storm. But that only matters when you, sitting there, throw off the chains of this debt, take your shame and your intimidated, whatever, your tail between your legs attitude, and chuck that out the window, because it's not helping you. It's not helping us. We don't need that. You can't use it. Get rid of it. Help us fight. This is a battle. This is your battle. These are your loans. This is your livelihood. You should be proud to be fighting this battle, as I am, and as many people on this group are. This is not a spectator sport. You need to jump in. The water is fine. We need you. So please just remember that. And with that, I'm going to call that a night. I don't see any comments. If you had comments and I didn't see them, I apologize. This happens frequently on Facebook. But remember, guys, daily actions, daily actions, daily actions. Do that. Do a month's worth. Forget the 2 weeks. Do a month's worth of our daily actions, and you'll be pulling your weight. How does that sound? Do we have a deal? Get it done. So I'll be back on Friday. Ed will be back on Thursday, knock on wood. He had a death in the family recently, and our condolences go out to Ed and his family. But hopefully Ed should be back tomorrow. As I said, I'll see you on Friday. Get the stuff done. Get your work done. Treat it like it. If you don't have a job right now, treat this as a half or even full-time job, like I do. More than a full-time job for me. But we need you. We need you. And there is no more noble cause that I can think of worth fighting, particularly right now. Because remember, it's not just us that we're fighting for. It's 45 other million people in the country who don't know about us and won't know about us until you tell them about us, but we're also fighting for tens or even hundreds of millions of people. They're going to follow in our footsteps. So they don't deserve to be conquered and enslaved. I think that's the second time I've said that. So fight for the children if nobody else. Okay, folks, I wish you the best of luck in your efforts. I wish you the speediest of Godspeeds, and may God bless us all in this very important, historically important endeavor. Peace.